touching to see so many people here. Especially like to thank Rick and Angie from the golf club for setting all this up for us and helping us along and maybe getting the technical difficulties set so we can on video as well. But thanks for all everybody being here. It's just been utterly touching to see the outpour and the support for Laura since she passed last week. What we'll be doing today is I'll be saying a few words, maybe more than a few words, then Michael, and then we'll do a blessing, and then we hope you'll all eat and we'll have some very nice fellowship here. I should also say at the service today, I thought the two homilies were beautiful. Unfortunately, they stole at least one or two of my stories that I'm planning on telling here today. So, far be it for me to criticize people in the religious life, but you may have to bear with me if you hear a story a second time. So my name is Jim Hurst. I am Laura's dad. She's been part of my life for over half my life. And as I was writing this, I was reminded a little bit of the 80s film, The Big Chill. And you might remember that it starts with sad images of a person who's passed away and his body being prepared for the funeral. Amid the mournful strains of Marvin Gaye's I Heard Through the Grapevine. Despite the somewhat depressing beginning, as the movie progresses, it turns into a celebration of that person's life and a rekindling of all the friendships among his college friends who come together for the funeral. So as hard as today is, Laura would not have wanted today to be sad, but rather a celebration of her life among this beautiful gathering of her friends. Anyone who teaches public speaking skills will tell you that when you want to convince somebody of a person's positive traits, you don't just say or assert those. Anyone can do that. What you really need to do is to tell stories that will cause the listener to realize and conclude on their own what those traits are. So let me start with a story you might not expect. When Laura was in grade school, one of her lifelong friends that she made was a girl named Courtney, who is actually here today, who's come from Phoenix along with Laura's other friend Angela, who's come from San Antonio. And they win the award for, along with a couple of our other neighbors, for having come the farthest to be here today. But here's what Courtney posted on Laura's Facebook page a couple days after she passed. I'm going to quote her here. "Oh, Laura, this is hard for me to even type. You were the one that taught me how to be peachy keen." You've heard that expression already. "You were the one that showed us all how to be happy no matter what." So peachy keen sounds kind of frivolous, but Laura's attitude was always peachy keen. In spite of a health history and a series of challenges that would have devastated and embittered pretty much any other person, she remained that way. Also, I prefer to just speak extemporaneously, but I'm not trying to get through this without breaking up, so I'll get at the drink over the now. But Laura was inevitably peachy keen and dedicated to the needs of others from the get-go. When Michael was born, Laura at age 3 was beyond excited to become a big sister. We took her to the hospital for her first opportunity to meet her brand new brother. Laura rushed over to see him and then immediately shrieked, "Mom, he has no teeth." So there you are, concerned for her brother right from the moment she met him. She was kind of afraid he'd have to gum his food for the rest of his life. By the way, Michael's teeth did end up coming in, and he's here if you'd like to check just to verify. So Laura always loved to travel, and that love took root from an early age. Coming across the story here you've heard already today, but I'll repeat it. In addition to always being excited about going on what she called a vacation, she was really excited about vacations, but she always wanted to join whenever I go anywhere, shopping for groceries, any other kind of shopping. She always wanted to tag along from an early age. So if we go back to when Laura was about 4 years old, you probably recall the hit song from the late 80s by Bobby McFerrin, "Don't Worry, Be Happy." And that was one of those songs where once you heard it, you couldn't get that tagline out of your head. So one day I needed to go to the hardware store. Laura tagged along. As I pushed my cart down the aisle, I realized Laura wasn't there. Got kind of panicky, raced over several aisles only to be greeted with the sight of Laura skipping down the aisle, stopping each customer and saying, "Don't worry, be happy." So if we fast forward about a year, we get to the devastating news that Laura had developed what we were told was an inoperable brain tumor. Her doctor, Dr. Dunn, what a name for a physician for a job. But he calmly and rather unemotionally informed us that they'd be able to keep Laura comfortable, but she will only have about 6 months to live. Kathy and I refused to accept the diagnosis, and we found a great doctor, Dr. Warnick, who was willing to perform the surgery that she needed. He was very upfront about the risks. He wanted us to realize and understand that when he opened up her head, if what he saw was too bad, he would just close it back up. If he was able to move forward with the surgery, we had to accept the fact that there was a chance she could pass away on the table, she could come out blind, paralyzed, or somehow brain damaged. Thankfully, she came through the procedure almost entirely whole, though her academic acuity was never quite the same as it had been before. But I think the realization she had to struggle to get B's in school probably contributed to her empathy for others and that outward peachy keen attitude toward others. Because of the surgery, Laura's head was shaved, and the staples surrounding the top to close the surgical wound made it look like she had a railroad track right around the top of her head. The nurses gave her what looked to be kind of a Smurf type hat to cover the staples. And she hated wearing the hat, she was consistently pulling it off. But finally, after several weeks in the hospital, she was able to go home and was really excited to get there to meet her childhood friend Emily and help us decorate the Christmas tree. Figuring Emily would just be horrified at the sight of the staples, I encouraged Laura to keep the hat on, but she refused. So I took her into the bathroom, and as I hugged her, she looked at herself in the mirror. She gasped audibly, but then quietly put the hat back on. Once again, wanting to do what was best for her friend. Now, if we fast forward a few more years, Laura was hospitalized yet again. Her cousins Megan and Rachel's class sent Laura letters to cheer her up. Kathy was about to remind Laura to write a thank you note, only to find that she'd written once to each of the kids that had written her. And then finally, after a few more years, we thought the worst was behind her, only to find out that at age 16, her doctors discovered another brain tumor. Making it worse was that this time, Laura was old enough to understand the gravity of her situation. We consulted multiple doctors, even traveled to UCLA to seek advice. After another successful surgery, though, and more time in the hospital, she was out and driving a car 5 days later from the hospital. Now, around this time, Laura took up golf and became involved in multiple charities, became really involved in efforts to help others. Unlike her dad, Laura was a joiner. Not just a joiner, though, she became the leader of so many of the efforts. Best Buddies, NotMyKid.org, Relay for Life, you name it, she got involved. And more recently, she formed what was called Laura's Letters, and she and we marched multiple times to help fund brain tumor research. So if we go back a bit to high school, Laura was asked to the prom by a real nice neighbor boy, Michael Calkins, whose parents also have come here today from Phoenix, and we appreciate that. On the big day, all the neighborhood moms, who of course love Laura, came over to help with her hair and her makeup. We had a big staircase leading to the living room. Michael arrived to pick up Laura, and Laura made her grand entrance down the stairs. There was a gentleman, Michael exclaimed, "Laura, you look beautiful." To which, without missing a beat, Laura's response was, "And so do you." So two beautiful people went out and had a beautiful evening together. Okay, last story. Those of you who are baseball fans will get it. Those who aren't, ask any of the baseball fans here in the room for an explanation. Every year, there's a major golf tournament at the Phoenix Open, or called the Phoenix Open, at TPC in Scottsdale, right near where we used to live. A couple days before the tournament, they hold an event called a Pro-Am, where local sports celebrities will play around accompanied by donors as a charity fundraiser. Players from the Diamondbacks, Suns, Cardinals, and Coyotes would always participate, along with other area athletes who happen to live in the Phoenix area. Laura was on the golf team at Highland High School, and members of her team were asked to come to the TPC to act as spotters for the athletes. In other words, they get to walk 18 holes with a pro athlete, help locate his shots, and basically be that person's aide for the day. Now, aside from golf, Laura didn't know that much about sports, but as usual, she was eager to join. So 7 a.m. on the big day, she left the bus for the course, didn't get back till about 7 that evening. She romped into the house, proudly wearing the Phoenix Open t-shirt she'd been given. I could see something was written on the sleeve, but I couldn't make out what it said. Asked how her day went, and I knew it was good since she was all smiles and peachy. And she said it was great. Well, so what athlete did you get to walk with? Well, Laura tells me they got there a little bit late, so all the local celebrities were taken, but they lined her up with a baseball player from another team. He was great. I walked all 18 holes with him. He talked to me all about school, my golf team, what college I wanted to go to. Just a really nice guy. Well, who was he? Laura says, I can't remember his name, but he was a pitcher, and everybody there kept calling him the Rocket. Looking at her shirt, I could see an indelible marker, an autograph on her shirt, Roger Clemens. So Laura has spent the day with one of the all-time best players in Major League history with not a clue who he was. Moreover, Roger Clemens had a reputation as kind of a moody, angry guy with little regard for his fans or others. Who was the one person that could turn Roger Clemens into a teddy bear? Laura. Actually, one more quick celebrity story. So about 10 years ago, we went to a Red Wings game. We had really good seats right near the goal, about 5 rows off the ice. Laura didn't know much about hockey aside from the objective was to score goals. But when the Wings got one, Laura leapt to her feet, just rocking away. Couldn't be more excited. So the next morning, I turned on SportsCenter on ESPN. They showed the highlights of the Wings game. Who was the main highlight? Laura in the middle of the screen. Nancy O'Hara. Just a little more. In recent years, Laura's health certainly had improved. In reality, it did seem to be on a bit of a slow downward trajectory. She had a nasty car crash in 2019, multiple hospitalizations after that, ongoing problems with aspirational pneumonia that led to an almost continual hacking cough, and an aneurysm in such a remote location in her head, it could not be corrected without another really dangerous and possibly catastrophic surgery. Her alternative became to live with it, with the daily risk it could rupture, greatly damaging or killing her. It seemed every time she rallied, another challenge would arise just around the next corner. Last Tuesday, just after she passed, we stopped off at Kathy's brother Ron's house. My sister-in-law Sally mentioned a conversation she had that we had not heard about, that she had with Laura this past Christmas, where she asked Laura how she was doing. Laura told her, I just wish I had an answer. For most people, not having that answer would completely justify being miserable and bitter about their circumstances. Laura never was. So Laura was dealt a horrible hand in life with her health. What we can learn from how she lived her life is that each day is a gift, meant to be experienced with joy, love, and caring for others. Laura made the bad hand she was dealt better by cultivating such a wide number of friends, as we can see here, but cultivating these friends, enriching her life and theirs in the process. Even this minute, I can feel those times where I'd be sitting on the sofa, she'd quietly come up behind me, put a hand on each shoulder, bend over, and give me a big hug. No particular reason, she'd just do it. That's just the way she was. So today, I hope you'll join me and Laura, and don't worry, be happy. Laura is with us right now, and she will always be Peachy Keen.